It was the kind of morning that had no business being so quiet. The light outside was hazy, the kind that filtered through the window like it was too tired to be bold. I had gotten up hours earlier than usual, an odd habit I'd picked up over the past few months. I liked the peace of the house when no one was awake, and the world still felt like it had potential. But today was different. Today, the silence seemed unnervingly loud. I checked my phone, the screen still illuminated from an old text I had left unanswered the night before. It was from my wife, Amanda. The message was short, simple. Out with some friends. Don't wait up. I had gotten used to these kinds of messages. Amanda was always out, always busy. She had a social life that seemed to stretch beyond what I could comprehend. Still, I told myself it was fine, that she needed her space. After all, we were both adults. We had lives outside of our marriage, didn't we? But as the hours passed, and she didn't come home, I started to wonder if I had been too comfortable with the distance that had been growing between us. Maybe I hadn't noticed the signs. Maybe I had been ignoring them. At 3:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. I'm staying at Jesse's. Don't worry. I set the phone down, the words repeating in my head. I'm staying at Jesse's. There was something about the phrasing that didn't sit right. I couldn't place it, but my stomach churned as if I'd missed something important. I sat there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what was so wrong about it. I knew Jesse. They had been friends for years. But something about the message felt off. I wasn't sure if it was the timing or just how casual she sounded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I got up, walked to the window, and stared out at the empty street below. The night felt still, too still. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something I couldn't see. The next morning, around 8 a.m., Amanda still wasn't home. The bed beside me was cold. I grabbed my phone to check for any missed calls or texts, but nothing. The last message was still from 3:42 a.m. She had been gone for over 5 hours. I sat on the edge of the bed, wondering if I was overthinking things. Maybe she was just really tired. Maybe Jesse's was far away, and they were up late talking or drinking. But the nagging feeling kept pulling at me. When she finally came home, the door creaked open with a familiar sound, but it was different today. I turned to see her standing in the doorway, her eyes avoiding mine. She had changed out of the clothes she had worn the night before, and her hair was disheveled like she had just rushed back. The moment she stepped inside, she smiled at me, but it wasn't the smile I was used to. It was tight, as if she was forcing it. Hey, she said, a little too brightly. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, waiting, watching her. Where were you? She hesitated for a fraction of a second before saying, I told you. I stayed with Jesse. We just ended up talking for a while. You know how it is. I didn't believe her. I didn't want to believe her. There was something in her voice, something in the way she avoided my gaze, that made me feel like I was the last person she wanted to talk to. But I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I simply nodded, trying to mask the growing discomfort in my chest. Yeah, sure. No problem. She walked past me, but I noticed the slight shift in her posture, how she seemed to be avoiding any real conversation, how she barely made eye contact. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. That afternoon, I decided to check something I had been avoiding for a while, her phone. We had always been open with each other about our devices, but lately, it seemed like she was hiding more. The thought of it made me uncomfortable, but the unease that had been brewing inside me pushed me to do it anyway. I grabbed her phone off the kitchen counter and unlocked it. The first thing I saw was a notification from a contact named Jay. It was just a simple, hey, we need to talk. I didn't know who Jay was, and the message didn't sit right with me. I had to know more, but at that moment, I heard Amanda's footsteps approaching from down the hallway. I quickly locked the phone and set it back down on the counter, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't explain it. I hadn't even seen anything concrete, but I knew, deep down, that something was wrong. But instead of confronting her right then and there, I did something I would come to regret. I let it slide. I told myself it wasn't the right time. I told myself it was nothing. But the truth was, deep inside, I knew this was just the beginning. The days that followed felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong move, and everything would come crashing down. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was just around the corner. I'd convinced myself that maybe I was just being paranoid. It had been a long week, and I was stressed. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But deep down, A small voice kept telling me that my wife, Amanda, was hiding something. It wasn't her actions. It wasn't what she'd said. It was the feeling, the unease in her eyes, the way she kept her distance just a little too often. I went through the motions as best I could, pretending like everything was normal. I greeted her in the mornings, we ate dinner together, and I tried to ignore the elephant in the room. The fact that, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I didn't really know the woman I had married. It wasn't until the weekend came that I felt like the world was starting to shift. We had plans to go out for dinner, something we'd been doing every Friday for the last few months to keep the connection alive. Amanda seemed eager, almost too eager, as if she was trying to convince me everything was fine. She wore her favorite dress, the one I had complimented 100 times, and she smiled that same tight smile when I told her she looked beautiful. But I saw through it. I saw the way her eyes darted nervously, the way her fingers played with the hem of her dress. She wasn't herself. As we walked to the car, I couldn't help but ask, "Is everything okay, Amanda?" Her response was quick, almost robotic. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? But the way she said it, it didn't sit right with me. It sounded rehearsed, like she had been practicing the answer for days. We got to the restaurant, a quiet, upscale place that we used to enjoy. The dim lighting, the soft music in the background. It should have been the perfect setting. But as soon as we sat down, the unease between us was palpable. There was a silence, an unspoken tension that hovered above our meal. I tried to make small talk, but it felt forced. I asked her how her week had been, about her work, her friends. She gave short answers, distracted. I found myself watching her, trying to figure out what was going on in her head. But every time I looked at her, it was like I was looking at a stranger. Her face was the same, but the person sitting across from me wasn't the woman I had shared so much with over the years. She was someone else. After dinner, we went for a walk along the park near the restaurant. I took her hand in mine, hoping that the simplicity of the moment would bring some kind of clarity, some kind of connection. But she didn't hold my hand back. Instead, she kept her distance, her body language closed off. That's when it happened. The thing I had been dreading but couldn't prepare for. "I've been thinking about something," Amanda said, her voice barely above a whisper. We had stopped walking and were standing by a fountain in the middle of the park. The light from the street lamps reflected off the water, casting strange shadows around us. I looked at her, my heart pounding. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, her fingers twisting nervously around a bracelet on her wrist. "I think we need to talk." It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. The tone, the way her eyes flickered away from mine as she spoke. It was like she was preparing to say something that would shatter everything. I felt the blood rush from my face. My breath caught in my chest, and I had to fight the urge to ask her outright what was going on. But I knew better. If I confronted her now, I might get more than I was ready for. "About what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Her gaze shifted, like she was weighing something in her mind, something she wasn't sure how to say. And then, as if deciding something for herself, she exhaled slowly. "I don't know if this is working anymore." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My body froze, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. I hadn't expected this. Not like this. Not now. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. I don't know. I think I need some time. Some space," she said, her voice cracking at the end, like she was on the verge of tears. But she didn't cry. She didn't do anything that showed she was affected. She simply stood there, looking away from me, the words hanging between us like a thick fog. I felt like I was suffocating. My chest tightened, and my mind raced. Was she already planning to leave me? Was this the beginning of the end? It felt like the world was slipping away from me, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I was too stunned, too shocked by what she had said. Instead, I turned away and looked out across the park. My thoughts were spinning. I needed answers. I needed the truth. But Amanda didn't offer any more explanation. She just stood there, her arms crossed over her chest, looking anywhere but at me. After what felt like an eternity, I finally spoke. "Is there someone else?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't say anything at first, and that silence, the silence that followed my question, was louder than any words she could have said. My stomach dropped, and I could feel the ground beneath me begin to shift. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes wide, almost shocked by my question. But then, without saying a word, She turned and walked away, her footsteps fading into the night. I stood there, frozen, watching her go. And in that moment, I realized I had just asked a question I might never be ready to hear the answer to. The rest of that evening was a blur, the night air cold against my skin as I walked aimlessly around the park. I was in a daze, the words Amanda had just dropped hanging heavily in my mind. I think I need some space. Those words echoed, over and over, until they consumed me. Every step I took felt like I was walking through quicksand, and I couldn't shake the nagging fear that I had already lost her, even if she hadn't said it yet. By the time I made my way back to the apartment, the night had swallowed up the city, the streets bathed in shadows. I walked through the door, but Amanda was already gone. Her things were still in the bedroom, her shoes tossed carelessly by the closet. Everything seemed to be in its place, and yet, nothing felt right. I stood in the living room for what felt like hours, just staring at the space we'd shared for so long. The familiar smell of her perfume lingered in the air, but it only made the emptiness feel more pronounced. I thought about the little things, her coffee mug left on the counter, the way she would hum softly when she did the dishes. Those small, almost insignificant moments that had once felt so comforting now felt like a cruel reminder of the distance between us. I wasn't ready to confront her. I knew she needed space, but I wasn't sure what to do with the emotions that were swirling inside me. I had always been the kind of person who avoided confrontation. I liked to think things through, analyze every possible outcome, but in this situation, nothing made sense. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for something I couldn't control. That's when I decided to check her phone. I know it was wrong. I knew it even as I picked it up from the kitchen counter, the temptation too strong to resist. I justified it by telling myself I needed answers, that I couldn't keep walking around in the dark, pretending like everything was fine. But the second I unlocked the screen, I regretted it. The first thing I saw was a message from a number I didn't recognize. The name was saved simply as Jay. The text was short but direct. "I'll pick you up tomorrow, like we planned." My heart dropped. I felt my pulse quicken as I read the message again. "I'll pick you up tomorrow, like we planned." This couldn't be good. Amanda had never mentioned anyone named Jay to me. But here it was, a message that implied something was going on behind my back. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more messages. The next one was even worse. "Can't wait to see you tonight. We'll have more time to talk. Let's make sure no one finds out." I froze. Every instinct in me screamed to stop reading, to put the phone down and walk away, but I couldn't. The words felt like they were tattooed onto my mind, indelible, impossible to ignore. I stood there, the phone in my hands, trying to process what I had just read. A part of me wanted to throw it across the room, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But another part of me knew that this was the moment. This was the point where everything would change. My mind raced. Who was Jay? What was going on between them? Had Amanda been seeing someone behind my back? I thought about the last few weeks, the late nights, the half-truths. It was all coming together now, a puzzle I hadn't even realized I was piecing together. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. I had to confront her, no matter how much it terrified me. But just as I turned to head towards the bedroom, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out quickly, praying it wasn't another message from Amanda. It was a call, from an unknown number. I answered without thinking, my voice shaky. "Hello." There was a long pause before a voice, deep and unfamiliar, spoke. "Are you going to let her do this to you?" I didn't answer. My mind was spinning. Who was this? How did they know about Amanda? The voice continued, calm and measured. "I'm sure you figured it out by now. She's been seeing someone else. It's been going on for a while. But this isn't the first time, is it? She's done this before." I could barely breathe. The weight of the words settled on my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't respond. All I could think was that this was some kind of sick joke, but it didn't feel like one. It felt too real, too personal. I tried to steady my voice. "Who is this? What do you want?" I asked, my throat tight. The voice on the other end paused before replying. "I'm just letting you know what's been happening. The rest is up to you. But if you want to save whatever's left of this marriage, you better act fast." Before I could say anything else, the call ended, leaving only silence in its wake. I stood there, gripping the phone, trying to understand what had just happened. Was this person a friend of Amanda's? Someone who knew about her affair? And what did they mean by, "if you want to save your marriage"? The answers I had been avoiding were now coming to the surface, and I realized with a sickening clarity that I was standing at the precipice. The truth was just beyond my reach, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. I had to decide what to do next. But one thing was certain: I couldn't keep living in the dark. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I didn't sleep that night. In fact, I didn't even try. The hours stretched on, and my mind raced through everything I had uncovered. The message from Jay, the strange phone call, the obvious distance between Amanda and me. Everything pointed to something I wasn't prepared to face. I kept playing the voice in my head over and over. She's been seeing someone else. It's been going on for a while. The words echoed, and the more I thought about them, the more I realized I had missed something. Something big. I had been so wrapped up in the idea that our marriage was fine, that everything was normal, that I didn't see the cracks slowly forming beneath the surface. But now, with the phone call and the messages, the truth was staring me in the face. I glanced at the clock. 4:30 a.m. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone, unlocked it, and went straight to the text from Jay. I read it again, the message burning in my mind. Can't wait to see you tonight. We'll have more time to talk. Let's make sure no one finds out. I clicked on the contact and was taken aback to find there was no name, just a number. I tried to trace it, but it was unlisted, no way to know who it belonged to. For the first time, I felt the weight of betrayal pressed down on me. This wasn't some petty argument or misunderstanding. This was something deeper, something that I couldn't fix by just talking it out. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't wait anymore. I had to confront Amanda. It had gone too far. If she wanted space, if she needed time, then I needed answers. I couldn't keep pretending that nothing was happening. The morning light finally crept into the room, the sun's rays casting long shadows across the floor. I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to calm my nerves. I barely recognized the person staring back at me. The man I saw in the reflection seemed unfamiliar, someone caught between the man I used to be and the one I was about to become. I took a deep breath, grabbed my keys, and drove to the one place I knew I could find her, Jesse's apartment. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to say when I saw her. But I couldn't let this go on any longer. I had to know the truth. The drive was short, but each second felt like an eternity. When I finally pulled up outside Jesse's building, my heart was in my throat. I didn't even bother to park properly. I just threw the car into park and rushed out. I walked up to the door, and before I even knocked, I could hear laughter from the other side. I froze. That laugh, so familiar, yet so distant. It was Amanda's. But it wasn't just Amanda's laugh. There was another voice. A man's voice. The sound of their conversation filtered through the door, and I felt a chill run down my spine. They weren't just talking. They were laughing, joking around like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't out there, wondering if I was the last person to know. Wondering if I was the last person in this world who had any idea who my wife really was. I stood there for a long moment, my hand hovering over the door, unable to bring myself to knock. What was I going to say? What was I going to do when the door opened? Was I ready to hear the truth? I wasn't sure. I was about to turn around and walk away when the door swung open, and there she was. Amanda. Her eyes widened when she saw me standing there, and for a split second, there was something like panic in her gaze. Then, almost as quickly, she composed herself and forced a smile. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice too calm, too practiced. I stared at her, the words I had prepared falling from my mind. The only thing I could think to say was, "I know." She didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, as though waiting for me to say something else. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, to call out the lies she'd been feeding me for months. But I didn't. I just stood there, my chest tight, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know about the texts, Amanda," I said, my voice low. "I know about Jay. I know what's been happening behind my back." Her face went pale. I saw the mask she had been wearing crack for a moment, her calm facade slipping, but only for an instant. Then it was back. "You don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not what you think." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her, shake her, demand that she tell me the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I just asked the one question that had been eating at me for hours. "Then explain it to me, Amanda. Explain how this isn't what I think." My voice was shaking now, a mixture of anger and confusion. I didn't know what else to say. She hesitated, biting her lip, and for a moment, I thought she might break down. But instead, she just took a deep breath and stepped aside, opening the door wider. "You should come inside," she said quietly, almost defeated. I hesitated. I knew what that invitation meant. I knew what kind of conversation we were about to have. But I had no choice. I followed her inside, knowing that the moment I stepped through that door, everything was about to change. The door clicked shut behind me with a soft thud, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I was standing in a room with my wife, the woman I had loved, the woman I thought I knew. But now, everything was different. I could feel the weight of the air pressing in on me, the silence hanging between us like a heavy fog, suffocating every word I wanted to say. Amanda stood there, her back to me, and I could see the way her shoulders slumped slightly, like the facade she had carefully built over the past few months was finally crumbling. For the first time, I saw her for what she really was. Someone who had been hiding, lying, and betraying everything we had built together. I wanted to ask her so many things about the texts, about the mysterious Jay, about everything that had been eating away at me for weeks, but I couldn't get the words out. It was like I had forgotten how to speak. She turned slowly, avoiding my eyes, and I saw the tightness in her jaw. "I never meant for it to get this far," she said, her voice shaky, but there was no real emotion behind it. It was like she had said this before, rehearsed it 1,000 times in her head, and now it was just coming out in the same detached tone. "Then what is this, Amanda? What have you been doing?" My voice cracked as the anger and hurt that had been building inside me finally erupted. I wasn't ready for this, for the broken woman standing before me. I wasn't ready for the truth. She looked at me for a moment, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Regret? Guilt? But then she quickly looked away again. "It's not what you think," she repeated, as if those words could fix everything, as if they could make it all go away. "I think I know exactly what it is," I said, stepping closer. "I know about Jay. I know you've been seeing someone behind my back. But you don't owe me an explanation, do you? Because I've been an idiot. I didn't see what was happening. I didn't want to see it." Her face faltered. The cracks were showing, but she quickly masked them. "You don't understand," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's complicated. This isn't just about him. It's about me. It's about us. I've been lost. I've been trying to figure things out, and I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know whether to be angry or just exhausted." The words she was saying, they didn't make sense. Lost. Trying to figure things out. It felt like everything we had worked for, everything we had been through together, was nothing but a lie. I had spent years building a life with her, a life I thought was real, and now it was all slipping through my fingers. "Lost," I echoed, the bitterness in my voice sharper than I intended. "So that's what this is about. You didn't know how to fix it, so you just ran off with someone else? You don't think I had a right to know? To at least be part of this? Whatever this is?" "I never meant for it to hurt you," she whispered, her eyes finally meeting mine. There was a sadness in them now, but it didn't change the fact that the damage had been done. "I didn't want to lose you." I was shaking my head now, trying to make sense of her words. "Then why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you come to me when you felt lost? Why did you let it go this far? Why did you let me?" I stopped myself, my throat tightening as I realized what I had been about to say. "Why did you let me be the fool?" I couldn't finish the sentence. I wasn't sure I even wanted to hear the answer. The truth was already sitting in front of me, ugly and painful. And no matter how many times she said it wasn't her fault, I couldn't escape the fact that she had made a choice. She chose him. She chose to hide this from me. Amanda took a shaky breath and stepped toward me, her hands trembling as she reached out. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't want this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. You're everything to me." But it didn't feel like it. Her words felt hollow, like they were the things she thought I wanted to hear. I didn't know what I expected her to say, but I had hoped for more. I had hoped for something real, something that could make sense of the mess we were in. But the more she spoke, the more I realized there was nothing she could say that would take away the hurt. I pulled away from her, unable to look at her for a moment. My hands were clenched into fists at my sides, the anger rising again, threatening to spill over. "I need to know everything. No more lies. No more excuses. I deserve that, Amanda." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes, but she didn't speak. I waited. I needed her to tell me the truth, to finally stop hiding. The room felt too small, too suffocating. And then, just as I thought I couldn't take it anymore, she spoke. There's someone else, and I've been seeing him for months, she admitted, her voice cracking with the weight of the confession. But it's not just that. It's everything. I've been feeling empty for a long time. I don't know when it started, but I've been searching for something. Anything that would make me feel alive again. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to hear that everything I thought I knew about my wife, about our life together, was a lie. But it was out now. The truth, raw and unfiltered, was hanging in the air between us. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to feel. But as I stood there, staring at Amanda, the weight of her words settling in, one thing became clear. Everything had changed. And I was standing on the edge of a new reality, one where nothing would ever be the same again. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with the weight of Amanda's confession. Her words echoed in my ears like a cruel reminder of everything I had been blind to. I've been feeling empty for a long time, she had said. And in that moment, it felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I stood there, paralyzed, my mind spinning. I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could do this to me, to us. But instead, all I could do was stare at her. The woman I thought I knew so well, the woman I had shared my life with, was now a stranger standing before me, revealing parts of herself I never thought existed. I never wanted you to find out like this, Amanda continued, her voice shaky, her eyes now red with tears. But I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I've been so lost. I didn't know how to fix it. I couldn't find my voice. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt stuck in my throat. How could she explain this away? How could she justify the lies, the deceit? How could she stand there and tell me she had been feeling empty while I was left in the dark, blind to everything that had been going on behind my back? My thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and anger, but I finally managed to find my voice. So what now? What do you want from me, Amanda? Do you want me to forgive you? To just let it go and pretend like everything is fine? Because it's not fine. You've broken something that can't be fixed with a simple apology. Her eyes filled with more tears, and she took a step toward me. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I've messed everything up. I've hurt you, and I can never take that back. But I need you to know that it wasn't just about him. It's about me too. I was trying to fill a void that I didn't know how to fix. She reached out, her hand trembling, but I stepped back instinctively. Stop, I said, my voice steady, though the pain was evident in every word. Just stop. I don't know if I can hear this anymore. I don't know if I can be here with you, after everything you've done. Amanda's face crumpled in on itself, and she looked away, her shoulders shaking as if the weight of the truth was finally too much for her to bear. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to destroy us. But I did, didn't I? I felt my chest tighten, a knot forming as the realization hit me. The woman I had loved, the woman I had spent years building a life with, had been slipping away right in front of me. I hadn't seen it. I had been blind to the signs, too wrapped up in the comfort of what we had to notice that things were slowly falling apart. Do you still love me? I blurted out before I could stop myself. The question hung in the air like a dangerous thing, and I immediately regretted asking it. But it was out there now. Amanda's eyes flickered to mine, but she didn't say anything right away. The pause stretched on, long and unbearable. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to know the answer, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear it. I don't know, she whispered finally, her voice breaking. I don't know what love is anymore. I don't know if I'm even capable of loving the way I used to. I don't know if I can ever be the person you want me to be. I felt like the floor had just been ripped out from under me. She didn't love me anymore. How could she say that? How could she admit that, after everything, after all the years we had spent together? The words stung more than I expected, and for a moment, I felt like I was suffocating. But at the same time, I knew the truth now. I had to face it, no matter how much it hurt. The person I thought Amanda was no longer existed, and the person standing in front of me was someone I wasn't sure I could trust anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the air in the room felt thick, oppressive. I turned away, needing space, needing a moment to gather myself. You're not the person I thought you were, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I knew it wasn't fair, that I shouldn't be saying these things in the heat of the moment, but the hurt inside me was too much to keep in. I don't know who you are anymore, Amanda. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, staring at me, her face wet with tears. The silence between us felt like a wall, a barrier that neither of us knew how to break. I could feel the years we'd spent together slipping away, one painful moment at a time. "I don't know what to do," she whispered after a long pause. "I don't know how to fix this." I shook my head. "I don't think you can fix it. I don't think there's anything left to fix." And that was the hardest part. Realizing that everything we had, everything I thought was real, was gone. "I need some time," I said, finally breaking the silence. "I need to think about what all of this means. I need to figure out what I want. And right now, I don't even know where to start." Amanda nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll give you the time you need. I know I've ruined everything, and I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I just turned and walked toward the door, my heart heavy with a weight I couldn't explain. When I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap in the face, but even that couldn't numb the pain I was feeling. I wasn't sure what came next. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with the broken pieces of my life. But one thing was clear, everything had changed, and I was no longer sure who I was without her. I didn't go back that night. I couldn't. The weight of everything, Amanda's confession, her tears, the way she looked at me like she didn't even recognize herself, was too much to bear. I drove aimlessly through the city, trying to clear my head, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The quiet hum of the engine was the only sound that kept me grounded, and yet it felt as if the world around me had gone completely still. I didn't know where I was going, but eventually, I found myself parked by the lake, the water reflecting the pale glow of the moon. I sat there for hours, my mind replaying the conversation over and over. I thought about the man who had been with Amanda, Jay, the stranger who had somehow become so important to her. Who was he? What did he offer her that I couldn't? And most importantly, how had she hidden it all from me for so long? The questions burned in my mind, each one cutting deeper than the last, but there were no answers. No closure. Just endless uncertainty. I wasn't sure how long I'd been sitting there when I finally decided to head home. It was almost dawn, and the quiet emptiness of the house awaited me. When I walked through the door, I didn't find Amanda waiting for me like I had expected. She wasn't in the living room, or the kitchen, or even in the bedroom. The house felt colder somehow, as if the warmth had drained out with her absence. I stood in the hallway, staring at the walls that had once felt like home, but now they felt suffocating. For a moment, I thought about calling her, about asking her to come back, to explain things more clearly. But something inside me stopped me. I knew the truth now, and no amount of talking could change what had already happened. The reality of the situation hit me hard. I didn't know what would happen next. Would she come back? Would she leave? Was there even a chance we could fix this? I walked into the bedroom and stood by the bed, staring at the empty space where Amanda used to lie. I reached for her pillow, but it felt foreign in my hands. It smelled like her, but it didn't feel like home anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, my thoughts swirling, trying to make sense of everything. The truth, Amanda's affair, the lies, the distance, had shattered something inside me that I wasn't sure could ever be repaired. I had spent years building a life with her, a life I thought was solid and real. But now, I wasn't sure who she was, and I wasn't sure who I was anymore either. I needed answers. I needed to understand why this had happened. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in the past, in the memories of who we used to be. Something had shifted, and I had to face it, even if I wasn't ready. The door creaked open, and I turned to see Amanda standing there. She was looking at me with wide eyes, her face pale and strained, like she was waiting for me to say something, anything. But I couldn't. My heart was pounding in my chest, and the words I wanted to say felt stuck in my throat. She stepped into the room slowly, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure if she should even be here. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. I didn't know what to say to her. Everything felt so fragile, so broken. I was angry, confused, hurt beyond measure. And yet there was a part of me that still wanted to reach out, to fix this. But I didn't know how. "You shouldn't be here," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Amanda's face crumpled, her eyes filling with tears. "I know," she said softly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I don't know how to fix it." I shook my head, standing up from the bed. "You can't fix this, Amanda. You can't just erase everything that's happened." She stepped closer, her hands trembling as she reached out for me. But I stepped back, not ready for her touch. Not ready for the comfort she was offering when it was the last thing I needed. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking. "I swear I didn't. But I've been so lost. I don't know how to explain it. I don't even know what happened to us." The words hung in the air, heavy and unresolved. I wanted to shout at her, to demand answers, but instead, I just stood there, staring at her, feeling the chasm between us grow wider and wider. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," I said quietly, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not." Amanda's face contorted in pain. "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I love you. I made a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. But I need you. I need us." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the damage had been done. And as much as I wanted to hold on to the woman I once knew, I couldn't ignore the reality that had unfolded before me. "I can't," I said softly, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "I can't keep pretending. I don't even know who you are anymore." She looked at me with wide eyes, like she couldn't believe what I was saying. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I don't recognize you anymore," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't know who you are. You've changed, Amanda, and I don't know if I can fix this. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." For a moment, we just stood there, the silence between us heavy and suffocating. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. And then, without another word, she turned and walked out the door. The sound of her footsteps echoed down the hallway, and I was left standing there, unsure of what to do, unsure of what was left to salvage. The days that followed felt like they had been pulled out of time. I woke up every morning feeling like a stranger in my own life, not sure where I belonged or how to move forward. Amanda's absence hung in the air like a heavy curtain, and as much as I told myself I needed space to figure things out, the emptiness of our home only made the pain sharper. I spent those days trying to rebuild, trying to piece together a life that had been shattered in ways I hadn't even realized until it was too late. I spent hours alone, thinking about everything, the lies, the confusion, the pain, but I also thought about the good things, the love we had shared, the life we had built. I wasn't sure how I could just let go of that. It wasn't easy, but over time, I found myself making little decisions, baby steps that led me toward healing. I started taking care of myself again, something I had forgotten how to do while we were both so caught up in the chaos. I went to the gym, took long walks by the lake, and did the things I used to love before the weight of our relationship's issues took over. Amanda didn't reach out for a few days, and at first, I thought that maybe that was it. Maybe we were done for good. But I couldn't help but wonder, was there still something worth saving? It was late one evening when I got the call. It wasn't from her number, but it was Amanda's voice. It was shaky, like she had been holding her breath, unsure of whether or not she should even be making the call. "I'm not asking for everything to go back to the way it was," she said, her voice small, but steady. "I don't even know if we can fix this. But I've been thinking, and I know I made a mistake. A huge one. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away, or ever, but I can't keep living with the guilt of what I've done." I felt my heart tighten in my chest, but I stayed quiet, waiting for her to continue. "I've changed," she said, her voice stronger now, but there was an honesty in her words I hadn't heard in so long. "And I want to show you that I can be someone you can trust again. I don't want to lose you, and I know that's something I've already done, but I'm not giving up on us." I didn't answer right away. I needed time to process, but there was something in her voice that made me pause, something that told me she was finally ready to face the consequences of her actions. She wasn't asking me to forget or to rush back to where we were. She was simply asking for a chance to make it right, one step at a time. "I don't know what comes next," I said finally, my voice thick with emotion. "But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to take that first step with you, not to fix everything, but to see if we can rebuild, slowly, carefully." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone, and for a moment, I wondered if I had said the right thing. But then I heard her soft, relieved breath. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything. And I promise, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." And just like that, something shifted. I wasn't sure if we could ever go back to the way things were, but I knew that we had a chance, a real chance, to move forward together, to heal, and maybe, just maybe, to rebuild what we had lost. It wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. But as I stood there, Holding the phone to my ear, I realized something important. Healing takes time. It takes effort. And sometimes, the first step toward healing is just taking a deep breath and deciding to try again. Amanda came back that night, and we talked. We talked about everything: the mistakes, the hurt, and the ways we could rebuild our trust. We didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on the same page. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were no grand gestures, no promises that everything would be perfect. But it was a start, a new beginning, a chance to make things right. And that, I realized, was enough. We didn't have to have all the answers right away. We just had to keep moving forward, together. And that was the first time in months that I felt like there was hope for us after all.